Alexandre Carvalho, a 42-year-old CEO of one of Brazil's largest technology companies, was about to announce to the world that he had finally found his heir. A boy. His son. The child who would carry his surname, his empire, his legacy. He had no idea there were 5 others, 5 children he had never seen, 5 lives he knew nothing about, 5 secrets that were about to blow up his perfectly constructed reality. But let's go back a little. Because to understand how such a powerful man, so controlling, so meticulous in every detail of his life, could have lost 5 fundamental pieces of his own history, one must first know who Alexandre Carvalho truly was. His office was on the top floor of a Manhattan skyscraper, with floor-to-ceiling windows offering a panoramic view of the city. From up there, everything seemed small, controllable. People were ants, problems minuscule. And that was exactly how Alexandre liked to see the world. From above, under his absolute control, he built his fortune from scratch. At 23, he founded an artificial intelligence startup when no one in Brazil took the sector seriously. 10 years later, his company was worth billions. Today, at 42, Alexandre Carvalho was a name that opened doors, appeared on magazine covers, and was cited as an example of Brazilian business success. His day always began at 5 in the morning. Workout in the private gym of his penthouse. Breakfast while reviewing financial reports. Strategic meetings before 8. Business lunches with international investors. Charity dinners where his presence was worth more than the donations he made. Alexandre was methodical. Calculating. Every move was planned 3 steps ahead. He didn't believe in chance. He didn't believe in surprises. Everything in his life followed a carefully crafted script, reviewed and executed with surgical precision. His relationships were like this too. Strategic. He dated 3 times throughout his life, always women from his own social class, always for calculated periods that never compromised his professional goals. When relationships ceased to make sense in the grand scheme of his life, he ended them with the same efficiency with which he closed commercial contracts. Alexandre never married, never wanted to. Marriage, in his view, was an outdated institution, full of unnecessary legal complications and emotional expectations he had no interest in managing. But there was one thing Alexandre had always wanted, ever since he became a successful man. An heir. Not out of sentimentalism. Alexandre was not sentimental. He wanted an heir for what it represented. Continuity, legacy, the certainty that everything he built would not die with him. The Carvalho empire needed someone to perpetuate it, someone to carry the name, someone to learn the business from a young age, someone who one day would assume the throne he was building brick by brick. And Alexandre always imagined it would be a boy. Not out of prejudice, he would say if someone asked, but out of tradition, out of symbolism. The Carvalho surname being carried by a man, as it had been for generations before him. Alexandre Carvalho Filho, or Alexandre Carvalho Jr. He hadn't decided yet. For years, this desire remained secondary. There were businesses to expand, markets to conquer, competitors to eliminate. Alexandre focused on building his empire first. The heir would come later, when everything was ready. But time passes. And at 40, when Alexandre looked around and saw everything he had achieved, he felt for the first time something he was not used to feeling. Urgency. Not the urgency of business, which he mastered perfectly, but biological urgency. The urgency of a clock that waits for no one, not even billionaires who think they control everything. That's when he began to seriously consider the idea of having a child. Not in the traditional way, of course. Alexandre wasn't going to get married. He wasn't going to tie himself down to a woman in a relationship he knew would eventually end. He was too realistic for that, so he began to explore other options. Surrogacy, adoption, co-parenting arrangements with women who understood that this was a business arrangement, not a romance. Alexandre treated the issue of paternity the same way he treated corporate acquisitions, analyzing all options, weighing pros and cons, calculating risks and returns. His closest friends, the few he had, found it all strange. Why didn't he just meet someone, fall in love, form a real family? Alexandre always smiled when he heard that. Passion was chemistry. Chemistry was temporary. He didn't build a billionaire empire by basing important decisions on temporary hormones. But there was something Alexandre didn't tell anyone. A secret he himself preferred not to revisit. Something that had happened years ago. One night. Just one night. A single time when he allowed his defenses to drop. A time when he wasn't the calculating, strategic, controlled Alexandre Carvalho. It was at a corporate event 5 years ago. A technology conference in Florianopolis. 3 days of lectures, networking, negotiations. On the last day there was a party. Open bar. Music. Executives from all over the world celebrating closed deals and established partnerships. Alexandre usually didn't drink more than a glass of wine. But that night, he was tired. Tired in a way that going to the gym couldn't fix. Tired of always being the ruthless CEO. Tired of calculating every word, every gesture, every interaction. So he drank. Not much, but enough for his barriers to loosen. And that's when he saw her. She wasn't part of the business elite. She worked at the event. Something related to the organization he didn't quite remember. But there was something about her that captured his attention in a way he wasn't used to. It wasn't just physical beauty. It was the way she moved, the way she smiled genuinely at people, the lightness she carried, so different from the weight everyone else there carried. They talked. Alexandre couldn't remember about what. He remembered her laugh, the way she wasn't impressed when he mentioned his company. The fact that for the first time in years, he was having a conversation with no ulterior motives, no strategies, no calculations. One thing led to another. They went to his hotel room, and for the first and only time in Alexandre Carvalho's adult life, he simply lived in the moment. Without thinking, without planning, without calculating consequences. The next morning, she was gone. She didn't leave a number. She didn't leave her full name. Alexandre tried to find her through the event company, but hit a dead end. It was as if she had been a dream, a temporary escape from his controlled reality. In the following months, Alexandre thought about her a few times, but he always pushed those thoughts away. It had been an aberration, a momentary deviation from his character. There was no room in his life to romanticize a night with a woman whose name he barely remembered. And then, 4 years later, when Alexandre had completely forgotten that episode, something happened. Something that would change everything. He received a call from a law firm he didn't know, saying there was an urgent paternity matter, saying a child had been registered under his name, a 3-year-old boy. Alexandre, of course, thought it was a scam, an extortion attempt. It wouldn't be the first time someone tried to take advantage of his fortune. He sent his lawyers to investigate, expecting them to quickly debunk everything. But the DNA test came back positive. He had a son, a boy named Miguel, 3 years old, son of that woman from the conference, the woman he had spent a single night with, the woman he couldn't find afterwards. She had died, a car accident, and in her will, she had left clear instructions. If anything happened to her, Alexandre Carvalho should be contacted. He was the father. He needed to know. When Alexandre learned this, he felt something strange. Not love. He didn't know the boy. But something akin to satisfaction. Destiny, perhaps, if he believed in such things. He had spent years planning how to have an heir, and the universe had simply delivered one to him. A boy. Exactly what he wanted. 3 years old, young enough to be molded, to learn the Carvalho values, to become the perfect successor. Alexandre wasted no time. He initiated legal proceedings to gain custody. He prepared his apartment to receive a child. He hired nannies, tutors, educators. He approached fatherhood the same way he approached a business acquisition, with efficiency, planning, and abundant resources. When Miguel finally arrived at his home, 3 months later, Alexandre looked at that small boy with frightened eyes and saw not a son, but a project. The biggest project of his life. To transform that child into the perfect heir to the Carvalho empire. He didn't try to learn much about the mother. He didn't want to meet her family. For Alexandre, that was the past. What mattered was the future. Miguel was his son now. Period. In the 2 years that followed, Alexandre raised Miguel the only way he knew how, with discipline, structure, and the best resources money could buy. The boy attended an elite bilingual school. He had tennis, swimming, and chess lessons. He learned about finance playfully from the age of 4. Alexandre wasn't exactly an affectionate father, but he was present. On his own terms, of course. Dinners where they discussed the day. Weekends where Alexandre took Miguel to the office and showed him how business worked. Trips where he combined professional commitments with quality father-son time. And Alexandre was proud. Proud to have an heir. Proud to be shaping the future CEO of Carvalho Technologies. Proud to have finally completed the last missing piece in his perfectly structured life. He was so proud that he decided to make a public announcement. An interview for a prestigious business magazine where he would speak for the first time about his personal life. About Miguel. About fatherhood. About legacy. The article would be published the following week. The photos had already been taken. Alexandre in his office, in an impeccable suit, with Miguel by his side, dressed like a miniature version of his father. The headline was ready. Alexandre Carvalho reveals his biggest investment. The future of the business dynasty. Alexandre reviewed the article before publication. He read every word with satisfaction. Everything was perfect. His public image as a ruthless businessman now had a human layer, that of a devoted father. That of a man who thinks about legacy. This would add value to his personal brand, open doors in more familiar elite circles, perhaps even soften his reputation for being too cold in business. He was sitting in his office, admiring the view he never tired of appreciating, thinking about how everything had fallen perfectly into place, when his phone rang. It was an unknown number. Alexandre usually didn't answer unknown numbers, but something in that moment made him pick up. Perhaps the euphoria of finally having completed his life plan. Perhaps the feeling that nothing could disrupt his perfect reality now. On the other end of the line, a female voice. Calm, firm, and with a message that would make Alexandre Carvalho's perfectly constructed empire begin to crack at its foundations. Mr. Carvalho, my name is Marina. I need to speak with you about Miguel's mother, about that night in Florianopolis, and about something you need to know. Alexandre frowned. Who was this woman? How did she know about Florianopolis? What else could she want? Money, probably. Another person trying to take advantage of his fortune now that Miguel's story was about to become public. I don't have time for this, Alexandre said, his voice returning to the professional, cold tone he used with people he considered inconvenient. Any legal matters concerning my son should be directed to my lawyers. Mr. Carvalho, the voice continued, still calm, but with an urgency that made Alexandre pause before hanging up. Miguel is not your only child. That night, sextuplets were conceived. The mother had 6 babies. Miguel was the only boy. There are 5 girls, and I've taken care of them for the past 5 years. Alexandre froze. The world around him seemed to stop. The panoramic view of São Paulo blurred. The sound of the office air conditioning seemed too loud. His heart, always so controlled, began to beat irregularly in a way he was unaccustomed to. 6. Not 1. 6. 5 girls he had never seen. 5 lives that existed somewhere, carrying his DNA, his genetics, potentially his surname, and he had no idea. But that night in Florianopolis had not been what he thought. It hadn't been an isolated adventure that resulted in a convenient consequence. It had been the beginning of something much bigger. Something he never imagined. Something that was about to destroy everything he believed he had under control. 7 years ago, at a charity gala in downtown Manhattan, Alexander Hawthorne, a 32-year-old businessman and heir to a multi-billion-dollar financial empire, was trapped in his own cage of perfection. Everything in his life was calculated, measured, approved by the board of directors that included his father, his uncles, and the investors who had turned the Hawthorne surname into a synonym for ruthless success. Even that night had a specific purpose: to appear, smile for the cameras, deliver a rehearsed speech about corporate responsibility, and leave before midnight. All planned, all controlled. And then he saw her. Maya Torres, 26 years old, social programs coordinator for a small NGO focused on early childhood education in underserved neighborhoods. She didn't belong to that world of designer dresses and empty conversations about stocks and mergers. She was only there because her organization had managed to get a table donated by one of the sponsors, a rare chance to make contacts that could mean more resources for the children she served. Maya wore a simple dress, borrowed from a friend, and her brown eyes didn't gleam with the calculated ambition Alexandre saw in all the other faces around him. She seemed genuinely interested when someone spoke. She laughed genuinely, not that social measured laugh he had learned to identify since childhood. Alexandre couldn't look away. When their paths crossed near the bar, it was almost accidental. She was trying to balance 2 champagne glasses to take back to her table when someone bumped into her. Alexandre caught her arm before she fell, and for a second, time seemed to freeze. It wasn't just physical attraction, although she was beautiful in a natural way that contrasted with the manufactured beauty of the women his social circle approved of. It was something deeper. It was the feeling that, for the first time in years, he was looking at someone real. They talked, first about the gala's cause, then about her work, and then, without realizing how, about dreams, frustrations, and the pressure of living up to other people's expectations. Maya spoke of children with infinite potential, but no opportunity. Alexandre spoke, for the first time in his life, about the feeling of being a pawn on a chessboard played by his father. These weren't conversations for that environment. These were conversations for people who truly connected. When the night ended, Alexandre did something he had never done. He acted on impulse. He invited Maya for coffee somewhere quieter. She hesitated because she knew who he was, knew that this encounter would lead nowhere. But there was something in his eyes, a vulnerability hidden behind the armor of corporate confidence, that made her say yes. Coffee turned into a walk through the empty streets of Manhattan at 3 a.m. The walk turned into an unexpected kiss beneath the awning of a closed bookstore. And the kiss turned into a night neither of them planned, but one they both desperately needed. A night where Alexandre wasn't the perfect heir, and Maya wasn't the responsible coordinator. They were just 2 people who, for a few hours, found refuge in each other's company. The next morning, reality returned with brutal force. Alexandre woke up to 12 missed calls from his assistant, 3 urgent meetings scheduled for that day, and the clear realization that his life didn't allow for impulses. Maya woke up next to a man who belonged to a completely different world than hers, a world where she would be, at most, an inconvenient footnote. They dressed in silence. They exchanged glances that said everything they couldn't verbalize. And when Alexandre walked out the door, both knew that night had been a parenthesis, not a new chapter. He didn't ask for her number. She didn't offer. It was easier that way. 6 weeks later, Maya was sitting in the bathroom of her small Queens apartment, staring at 3 positive pregnancy tests lined up on the sink's edge. Her hands trembled so much she had to sit on the cold floor. Pregnant. By a man she had only seen once. By a man who probably didn't even remember her name. By a man whose world would never ever accept a woman like her. Much less an unplanned child who would threaten the carefully orchestrated line of succession of the Hawthorne family. The tears came slowly, silently, rolling down her face without her making any effort to wipe them away. They weren't tears of despair, not exactly. They were tears from someone who had just realized her life had changed forever, and that the decisions she made in the coming days would define not only her future, but the future of an innocent child. She thought about contacting him. She picked up the phone 1,000 times, typed messages she never sent, searched for his company's corporate contact. But she always stopped at the same thought. What if he thought she was trying to take advantage of the situation? What if he offered her money to disappear? And what if, even worse, he decided he wanted the child, but not her? Maya had seen stories like this, had read about powerful men who ripped babies from the arms of mothers they deemed unsuitable. So she made the hardest decision of her life, to move forward alone. The months of pregnancy were an emotional roller coaster. Maya worked until she could no longer hide her belly, then took leave and isolated herself. Her few close friends knew, but she asked them to keep it a secret. She didn't want judgment. She didn't want well-intentioned advice about what she should do. She just wanted to survive each day, each morning sickness, each pang of fear about how she would raise a child alone on her modest salary. And then, at the 20-week ultrasound appointment, came the revelation that changed everything. "It's sextuplets," the doctor said, with a mix of astonishment and professional concern. 5 girls and 1 boy. It's extremely rare, but they all seem healthy. Maya couldn't process the information for several seconds. 6 babies. 6. Not 1, which would have been challenging enough. 6 children who would depend entirely on her. The panic she had managed to control for weeks finally exploded. How would she feed 6 babies? How would she pay for diapers, formula, clothes, daycare? How could she be a single mother to sextuplets when she could barely afford rent? That night, for the first time, Maya seriously considered telling Alexandre everything. Not because she wanted anything from him, but because the scale of the situation had surpassed anything she could handle alone. But then she imagined his reaction, his family's reaction, and the fear returned even stronger. Men like Alexander Hawthorne didn't have unplanned children. They had strategic heirs, born within approved marriages, educated in the right schools, molded to take over empires. 6 unplanned babies with an NGO coordinator? That would be a scandal, a stain on the family's reputation. And worse, what if he only wanted the boy? The idea emerged like a nightmare. But the more Maya thought about it, the more real it seemed. Families like the Hawthornes valued male heirs. She had read about custody battles where wealthy fathers took only the children they considered valuable. If Alexander knew he had a son, he might claim him, leaving Maya with the 5 girls and no resources to raise them. So she made a silent pact with herself. She would protect her children, all of them, even if it meant hiding the truth. The birth was traumatic, but all 6 babies survived. 5 small, perfect girls: Emma, Sophia, Olivia, Isabella, and Lily. And 1 equally perfect boy, whom Maya named Ethan. In the first few months, she survived with the help of friends, donations from single mother support groups, and a fierce determination she didn't even know she possessed. But as the children grew, the financial reality became unsustainable. That's when Maya made the most calculated and painful decision of her life. She would contact Alexander, but she would only tell him about Ethan. It took her 3 weeks to gather the courage and compose the message. She needed to be careful, precise. It couldn't seem like she was asking for money, but she also couldn't hide that she had a child of his. The final message was simple, almost cold. "Alexander, I'm Maya Torres. We met 2 years ago at a charity gala. I need to speak with you about something important related to that night. It's about your son." The reply came in 20 minutes, a phone number and 3 words: "Call, right now." The conversation was tense, full of his questions and her careful answers. Yes, she was sure the child was his. No, she didn't want money. Yes, she had proof if he wanted to do a paternity test. Alexander didn't hesitate. He scheduled the test for the following week, at a private, discreet clinic. Maya took Ethan, holding the 1-year-old boy so tightly her arms ached. The 5 girls stayed with a friend, hidden, protected. The result confirmed what both already knew. Ethan was Alexander Hawthorne's son. His reaction surprised Maya. There were no accusations, no coldness. There was something she hadn't expected to see in his eyes: genuine awe. Alexander held the boy carefully, as if holding something precious and fragile, and for the first time in years, he truly smiled. "I have a son," he said almost to himself. "An heir." And in that moment, Maya knew she had made the right decision by hiding the other children. Because Alexander wasn't seeing Ethan as a child who needed love and care. He was seeing the boy he had always wanted, the son who would complete the perfect image his family demanded. He spoke of private schools, of introducing Ethan to the family, of giving the boy everything he deserved. But he didn't ask about Maya. He didn't ask how she had survived the last 2 years. He didn't ask if there was anything else she needed to tell him. And Maya, heartbroken but resolute, said nothing about the 5 girls waiting for her at home. Alexander established a formal agreement. He would acknowledge Ethan as his son, but the boy would live with Maya until he reached school age. He would pay a generous allowance, ensure the best for the boy, but keep everything discreet until the right moment to present the heir to society. Maya accepted the terms, not because she wanted to, but because she needed to. Ethan's allowance meant she could feed and clothe all 6 children. It meant they would have a chance. But it also meant living a lie. Because Alexander Hawthorne believed he had 1 son. And Maya knew the truth he couldn't discover. He had 6. A billionaire CEO's life was about to become perfect. Finally, he had found his heir. Finally, he had a son to carry his name, his legacy, his empire. And he wasted no time in showing it to the world. In the following weeks, he made a point of introducing the boy to everyone who mattered. Business partners, investors, the traditional family who had always pressured him for an heir. In every meeting, in every dinner, in every social event, there he was with the boy by his side. "This is my son," he would say, with a pride he had never felt before. "One day, all of this will be his." And people looked at the boy with approval. They saw the same eyes, the same bearing, the same presence that already announced a leader in the making. No one questioned. After all, the resemblance was undeniable. The CEO began planning the future. Business classes, leadership training, trips to get to know the company's operations around the world. He had waited so long for this. And now that he had his heir, every moment was precious. On weekends, he would take the boy to play golf at the most exclusive clubs. He taught him about investments while they had breakfast at 5-star hotels. He showed him how to command a room, how to negotiate, how to never show weakness. And the boy absorbed everything. Intelligent, attentive, exactly the son he had always imagined having. "You're going to be bigger than me one day," he would say, placing a hand on the boy's shoulder. "You're going to build something the world has never seen." The boy smiled, and the CEO felt something he rarely experienced: genuine connection. It wasn't just about the empire. It wasn't just about the legacy. It was about having someone who was his. Someone who looked at him not as the most powerful man in the room, but as a father. He was getting attached. More than he planned. More than he should have. And that made everything much more dangerous. Because while the CEO built his perfect world with the boy, the mother lived in 2 universes that could not coexist. On one side, there were the son's visits to the CEO. The weekends when he left dressed in expensive clothes, got into luxury cars, and came back talking about private planes and business meetings. She smiled, pretended everything was fine, and kept the terror deep in her chest. On the other side, there were the 5 children who stayed at home, quiet, hidden, forbidden to exist in his world. She woke up every morning with the weight of this lie, and with each passing day, the weight became more unbearable. Because keeping a secret is easy when you don't have to live within it all the time. But when every call can reveal everything, when every word can destroy your life, fear becomes constant. And there were so many moments when everything almost fell apart. Like that afternoon when the CEO was with the boy in his office, showing him the company's future projects, and her phone rang. She looked at the screen. It was the other children's school. Some problem, but she couldn't answer it there. She couldn't risk him hearing children's voices in the background, questions about siblings, anything that would reveal the truth. She hung up the phone and felt her heart pound. "Everything all right?" he asked, looking up from the documents. "Yes," she lied. "Just spam." He accepted it, went back to work, and she breathed again. But these moments multiplied. With each week, each visit, there were more loose ends. More questions she couldn't answer. More risks that everything would come to light. Like when the boy casually mentioned during dinner, "My brothers like pasta too." The CEO stopped eating, looked at him. "Brothers?" The boy realized his mistake, looked at his mother, scared. She forced a laugh. "He calls his cousins brothers. You know how kids are." The CEO studied her face for a very long second, but then he relaxed. "Of course. Big family, I imagine." She nodded and changed the subject as quickly as she could. But he had noticed. She saw it in his eyes. A small seed of doubt. And that seed began to grow. Because the more time the CEO spent with the boy, the more he wanted to know about the mother's life, about her family, about the world she protected so fiercely. "When will I meet your parents?" he asked one day. "They live far away," she replied. They don't come to the city much. Then let's visit them. I can take my private jet. It'll be quick. They are very private. They don't like visitors. He frowned. Too private to meet their grandson's father? She had no answer. She just looked away, and he noticed. Every time he asked questions about her life, she deflected, changed the subject, made excuses. "Why do you never let me into your life?" he asked one night, after dropping the boy off at home. They were in the car, parked in front of her building. "I show you everything. My company, my family, my world. But you keep me at arm's length." "That's not true," she said, but her voice came out weak. "It is." He turned to face her. "I don't even know where you work. I don't know your friends. I've never seen the inside of your house. It's like you're hiding something." The silence between them was thick, dangerous. "I'm not hiding anything," she lied. "I'm just a private person." Private. He repeated the word as if testing its taste. "Or afraid I'll discover something?" She felt panic rise in her throat. "Discover what?" "I gave you our son. I let you spend time with him. What more do you want?" "The truth," he said simply. "I want to know who you really are." She got out of the car without answering, entered the building without looking back, and when she got home, she locked the door and leaned against it, trembling. The 5 children were asleep. The apartment was quiet, but she knew that tranquility was an illusion. Because on the other side of the city, sitting in the car still parked in front of her building, the CEO made a decision. He had built an empire by being meticulous, investigating every investment, verifying every partner, never blindly trusting anyone. And now, for the first time, he realized he had violated his own rule. He had a son with this woman. He was planning a future with the boy. But he knew almost nothing about the mother. And the more he thought about it, the stranger it seemed. Why was she so evasive? Why did she never let him truly get close? Why was every question answered with another excuse? He picked up the phone, dialed the number of his private investigator. The same man who vetted executives before important hires. The same man who uncovered competitors' secrets. "I need you to investigate someone," he said when the call was answered. "Of course. Name?" He gave her name. Address. Everything he knew, which wasn't much. "I want to know everything," he instructed. "Where she works, who she associates with, financial history, family, everything." "Understood. How much time do I have?" The CEO looked at the building she had just entered, at the dark windows, at the secrets he was now sure she was keeping. "As soon as possible," he said. "This is top priority." He hung up, and for the first time in weeks, that feeling of control returned. He was a man who solved problems, and if there was a secret, he would uncover it. After all, he hadn't built a billion-dollar empire by accepting evasive answers. As he drove back to his penthouse, he was already planning. In a few days, he would have a complete dossier. He would know everything about her, and if there was something she was hiding, he would discover it, because no one messed with him, and especially not when it involved his son. What he didn't know was that the dossier he was about to receive would not contain just one secret. It would contain 5. His perfect world was built on one truth. He had one son. But her secret world held 5 more children. And when these 2 worlds collided, nothing would be the same. The investigator was already working. The cameras were already watching. The records were already being scrutinized. And in a matter of days, the CEO would discover that the boy he loved, whom he was training to inherit his empire, whom he called his son, was not the only one. In the coming days, as he continued his routines with the boy morning meetings, dinners at exclusive restaurants, future planning, he didn't know that every moment was being contrasted with a hidden truth. That while he taught the boy to sign documents, there were 4 other children learning to write in a modest apartment on the other side of the city. That while he bought the boy the best money could buy, there was a twin sister wearing clothes her mother managed to get on sale. That the son he believed to be unique was, in fact, one of 6. And that the woman he was beginning to suspect held the secret that would change everything. The investigator worked quickly, and soon, very soon, the truth would come to light. The only question was, when the CEO found out about the other 5 children, what would he do? Because he had said he wanted an heir. He had said he wanted a son, specifically a boy to carry on his legacy. But what about the other children? The ones he didn't choose? The ones who only existed because they were born together? Would he accept them? Or would he do exactly what he always said he would, take only the boy and leave the rest behind? The mother knew the answer. That's why she hid. That's why she lied. That's why she kept 2 worlds separate. Because if he found out, she would lose everything. And as she put the children to bed that night, kissing each forehead, whispering that everything would be okay, she didn't know that time was running out. That the most powerful man she knew had just hired the country's best investigator. And that soon, all her secrets would be exposed. The storm was brewing. And when it hit, nothing would be left standing. His perfect world was built on one truth. Her secret world held 5 more. And the collision between these 2 worlds was closer than anyone imagined. And so the investigation began. The CEO was not a man to accept half-truths. He hadn't gotten where he was by trusting only words. He needed proof. He needed facts. And if there was one thing he knew how to do well, it was to uncover the truth. The next morning, he hired the city's best private investigator. A discreet, efficient man with years of experience in delicate cases. No known agencies, no traces. This work needed to be invisible. "I want to know everything about her," he said, sliding a folder across the table. "Where she lives, who she lives with, her routine, her son's school, everything. And most importantly," he paused, his eyes fixed, "I want to know if there's anything else she hasn't told me." The investigator nodded, professional as ever. "How much time do I have?" 2 weeks. "No, 1. I need answers now." And so, as she went about her normal life, unaware she was being watched, the threads of truth began to unravel. The first few days brought basic information. Address confirmed. A modest apartment in a middle-class neighborhood. Nothing luxurious, but respectable. She worked part-time as a graphic designer, mostly from home. The boy, her son, was enrolled in a nearby private school. Everything seemed normal. Too simple, in fact. But then came the strange details. "She shops for a large family," the investigator reported at the first meeting. "Full carts, diapers, children's clothes in various sizes, enough food to feed a small army." The CEO frowned. "Maybe she helps someone. A sister, her mother." "I checked. Her parents live in another city. She has no siblings. She lives alone in the apartment. Alone. With a 5-year-old son. So why so many groceries?" The second clue came from school records. The investigator, through his contacts, gained discreet access to the school's files. The boy was registered as an only child. Nothing abnormal there. But there was a note in the system. Mother authorized additional emergency contact for 5 other children from the same family. 5 other children? The CEO read and reread that line. What other children? "I'm still investigating, but there's more." The investigator slid a printout across the table. "I found mentions in local mothers' groups. She participates in online forums about raising multiples." Multiples. The word echoed in the CEO's mind like an alarm bell. No, it couldn't be. "Keep investigating. I want photos. I want concrete proof." In the following days, the pieces began to fit together in a disturbing way. A neighbor mentioned in a casual conversation overheard by the investigator that the lady in 304 has a whole troop of kids, but she only ever goes out with the oldest boy. A grocery delivery person commented, "I always ask for help carrying up the groceries. It's 6 cake trifles every month, 6. She said all their birthdays are in the same week. 6. The number started appearing everywhere. 6 chairs on the small balcony when the investigator got a photo of the apartment. 6 backpacks hanging on a hook near the door. 6. And then came the bombshell. The investigator called on a Thursday evening, his voice restrained but urgent. "I need you to see this in person. Now." 20 minutes later, the CEO was in the investigator's office, his heart pounding without understanding why. "I got this today." The investigator opened the laptop and turned the screen. It was a photo. A simple photo posted in a closed group for mothers of multiples, where she shared tips and experiences. And in that photo, she was smiling, surrounded by 6 children. 6. 5 identical girls, like reflections of each other, with the same brown curls, the same expressive eyes, and one boy, the son he knew. The CEO felt the ground disappear beneath his feet. "Wait," he whispered, his voice choked. "Wait, 6? How? How is it possible, 6 children?" The investigator, ever pragmatic, already had the answer. "I did a full check. Hospital records, birth certificates. All 6 children were born on the same date, same hospital, same delivery." He paused, letting the information sink in. "It was a sextuplet birth, sir. 5 girls and 1 boy. Born exactly 9 months after the date you told me. The date of that night." The world stopped. Completely. The CEO stared at the photo, unable to process what he was seeing. His brain refused to accept it. 6 children. 6. From the same gestation. From the same father. His. 5 girls. 1 boy. 6 children. He had 6 children that night. And she hid 5 of them. The room began to spin. He leaned on the desk, breathing with difficulty, feeling his chest tighten as if someone were pressing down hard. "Sir?" The investigator's voice sounded distant. "Are you all right?" He was not all right. How could he be? She lied. She omitted. She hid 5 children from him. 5 daughters. His daughters. Children he never knew, never held, never even knew existed. Why? Why would she do this? The initial shock began to give way to another emotion. Darker, more intense. Rage. "She knew," he murmured, more to himself than to the investigator. "She knew there were 6, knew from the beginning, and she only told me about 1. Only 1. His voice began to rise, his control unraveling. "She sought me out, asking me to acknowledge 1 child. 1. As if the other 5 didn't exist, as if I didn't have the right to know." He slammed his hand on the table, rage overflowing. 5 years hiding my daughters from me. While I thought I only had 1 son, she was raising 5 others by herself, as if I didn't matter, as if they weren't mine too. The investigator remained silent, professional, letting the client process. But the CEO couldn't stop. What kind of person does that? What kind of mother hides her children from their own father? I had the right to know, the right to be present, to know them, to raise them, to be a part of their lives. Each word carried more intensity, the betrayal burning like acid. He looked at the photo again. The 5 girls, so small, so much alike, smiling innocently at the camera. They were not to blame. They didn't know they had a father who never knew they existed. And the boy. That little boy he had begun to know, to bond with, to imagine a future together. Everything was a lie, not everything. The boy was real. But the story, the narrative she created, was a farce. An edited version of the truth, carefully constructed to show only what she wanted him to see. "Why only him?" the CEO whispered, his voice broken. "Why only tell me about the boy? Weren't the girls important enough? Didn't they deserve to have a father?" He felt tears of rage burn his eyes, but he held them back. This was no time for weakness. It was time to act. "She will explain herself," he said, his voice cold now, decisive. "She will look me in the eyes and tell me why she did this. Why she lied. Why she hid my daughters from me." The investigator nodded. "What do you need me to do?" "Nothing more. You did your job." He picked up the folder with all the evidence, all the photos, all the documents. "Now it's up to me." He left the investigator's office with firm steps, his jaw clenched, his whole body tense with an explosive mixture of anger, betrayal, and determination. In the car, driving through the city streets towards her apartment, his mind wouldn't stop. 5 years. She had 5 years to tell the truth. 5 years to do the right thing. And she chose to lie. He imagined the girls. Imagined what they would be like. If they looked like him too, like the boy. If they had his expressions, his gestures, his intelligence. 5 little lives that should have had a father and didn't because she decided he didn't deserve to know. The rage surged again, stronger. How dare she? How dare she deny him the right to be a father to all his children? The traffic light turned red, but he barely noticed, braking sharply at the last second. Breathe. Control. But he didn't want control. He wanted answers. He wanted the truth. He wanted to look her in the eyes and hear an explanation that made sense, though he knew no explanation would be sufficient. Nothing justified hiding 5 children from their own father. Nothing. He grabbed his phone, dialed her number. It rang once, twice. Hello? Her voice calm, unconcerned. I'm coming to your house, he said without preamble. Now, we need to talk. There was a pause. About what? Did something happen to? About the truth, he interrupted, his voice cutting. About everything you didn't tell me. I'll be there in 10 minutes, and I suggest you be ready to explain a lot. He hung up before she could reply. His hands clenched the steering wheel so tightly his knuckles turned white. 10 minutes. In 10 minutes, he would be face to face with the woman who changed his life twice. First, when she gave him a son. Second, when she hid the other 5. And this time, she wouldn't escape without giving all the answers. All of them. The car sped down the avenue, cutting through the night traffic, as the CEO mentally rehearsed everything he would say, everything he would ask, everything he would demand. The truth was about to come out. Complete, raw, inevitable. And nothing, absolutely nothing, would ever be the same again. The car stopped abruptly in front of the modest building. He got out even before the driver could open the door, his steps firm, his jaw clenched. Rage pulsed with every beat of his heart. She opened the door, trembling. She saw him there, standing, with that expression she knew so well. That look of someone accustomed to having everything under control. But now? Now he was out of control. How could you? The words came out low, dangerous. How could you hide this from me? She recoiled. 5 years. He walked in without an invitation. 5 years you hid from me that I have children. 5 children. You don't understand. Don't understand. Don't understand. His voice echoed through the small room. You stole 5 years of their lives from me. You stole my chance to... That's when he saw 6 children, all standing at the entrance of the room. 6 pairs of wide eyes staring at him. 6. Wait. He froze. He counted again. 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. She closed her eyes. How many? His voice cracked. How many children do I have? 6. The word came out as a whisper. You have 6 children. His world stopped turning. He had come there looking for 5. 5 was already impossible to process. But 6. 6. You hid 6 children from me? He stumbled, leaning against the wall. 6 children of mine living here, in this... He looked around, seeing the cracked walls, the old furniture, the cramped space. In this place? I did the best I could. She finally burst out, tears streaming. Do you think it was easy? Do you think I wanted to raise 6 children by myself? Then why didn't you tell me? Why didn't you... Because I was afraid. The words came out as a scream. I was afraid of what you would do. What I would do. I'm their father. Exactly. She was trembling now. You're a CEO, a powerful man, rich, influential. And me? I'm nobody. A waitress you met one night and forgot the next day. He opened his mouth to protest, but she continued. When I found out I was pregnant, I tried to find you. Do you know that? I went to your company. The receptionist looked me up and down and treated me like trash. She said women like me showed up every week claiming to be pregnant with your child, that I should be ashamed. Her voice broke. I left with such humiliation that I swore I'd never come back. And then, when the babies were born and I saw there were 6, she sobbed. 6 premature, tiny babies fighting to survive. I thought I was going to lose them all. He remained silent, processing. I spent 3 months in the hospital. 3 months watching my children in incubators, praying they would live. And when we could finally go home, I had 6 babies and no help, no family, no money. You could have… What? Go back to you? Show up with 6 babies and expect you to believe me? That you wouldn't think it was a scam? That you wouldn't try to take them from me? She angrily wiped her tears. Because that's what I feared most, that you would show up with your lawyers and your money and take my children from me. That you would decide they deserved better than a poor mother living in a small apartment. That you would deem me unfit and take them away. I would never do that. How was I supposed to know? She looked at him, her eyes red. I didn't know you. One night. It was just one night. And from that night came 6 lives that depended completely on me. He had no answer. So I made a choice. Her voice grew firmer. I chose to give them what I could. Love, stability, a simple but happy life. No lawyers, no custody battles, no being torn between 2 worlds. But the boy, he got sick. Fresh tears. And I had no way to save him. I needed money I didn't have. I needed you, so I broke my own rule. I came to you asking for help. She looked at her children, then back at him. And you came. You saved him. You gave him the chance to live. For that, I will be eternally grateful. But I couldn't give you the other 5. I couldn't risk you taking them away from me. Silence hung heavy between them. He looked at the children again. 6. All looking at him with curiosity, fear, hope. A little girl stepped forward. She had curly hair and eyes exactly like his. Are you our dad? The tiny voice was shy. Something inside him broke. He swallowed. Yes, I am. Mommy said you were important, that you had a very important job. Important job. He had spent 5 years building empires, closing deals, accumulating fortune. And all that time, these 6 children were here, living, growing, without him. An older boy approached. Are you going to live with us now? He looked at their mother, then back at the boy. I don't know. Another smaller boy started to cry. Are you going to take us away from Mommy? No. The answer came out instinctively, urgently. No, I won't. But would he not? Minutes ago, he had been ready to litigate, to fight for custody, to use all his power and influence. He looked around. The apartment was small, yes. Simple, yes. But it was clean, organized. The children were dressed in mended but clean clothes. There were drawings on the refrigerator, toys scattered, books on makeshift shelves. Love filled every corner of that place. One of the girls approached him, holding a tattered teddy bear. Want to see my drawing? He knelt, meeting her gaze. I do. She ran to a folder and returned with a paper. It was a family drawing. A woman in the center, 6 children surrounding her. And in the corner, a man's figure, drawn with a lighter pencil. This is you. She pointed to the figure. Mommy said you were working, but that one day you'd come back. He couldn't speak. His throat was tight. Another child approached, then another, until all 6 were around him, talking at once, showing things, touching his expensive clothes, his watch, his face. Your eyes are just like ours. You're so tall. Are you staying for dinner? Will you read us a story? His. All of them were his. He had lost 5 years. 5 years of first words. First steps, first laughs. 5 years of sleepless nights, of drawings, of bedtime stories. 5 years of lives unfolding without him. And whose fault was it? He looked at the woman. She was leaning against the wall, exhausted, vulnerable, watching him with the children. Still afraid. Afraid of what he would do. And he understood. She hadn't hidden the children from him out of malice, out of revenge, out of greed. She had hidden them out of fear, legitimate fear of losing the only thing she had in the world. Fear of a powerful man who could destroy her life with a phone call. She had raised them alone for 5 years. 6 babies. Alone. Without help. Without money. Without family. And they were. Well, happy even. Healthy. Well-behaved. Loved. She had done it. Alone. The rage that consumed him minutes ago was transforming into something different. Something more complex. Admiration. Respect. Regret. What are their names? He finally asked, his voice hoarse. She blinked, surprised. You want to know? I want to know everything. She approached slowly. She pointed to each child. Sophia. She likes to draw. Miguel, he loves books. Lucas is the one you already know. Julia is the quietest, but she observes everything. Pedro is the family clown, and Anna. She smiled sadly. Anna asks about you every night before bed. Anna, the little girl with the teddy bear. He looked at each of them. 6 children, 6 lives, 6 futures, 6 parts of him he hadn't even known existed. I lost so much time. The words came out broken. I know, she whispered. I'm sorry. I was wrong. I should have found a way. I should have tried harder. But I was so scared. I understand. And he understood. He finally understood. I understand why you did what you did. The children were silent now, sensing the shift in the air. But we can't let any more time be lost. He stood up. They are my children. Our children. And they deserve to have both of us, not just one. What are you saying? I'm saying that. He ran a hand through his hair. I don't know. I'm still processing all of this. But I know I'm not leaving. I won't disappear again. And I won't take them from you. She let out a sob of relief. But we have to figure out how to make this work. How to be a family, even if it's not traditional. How to give them what they deserve. Both of us present in their lives. Sophia tugged at his sleeve. So, you're staying for dinner? He looked at their mother. She nodded, uncertainly. Yes. He knelt again, opening his arms. I'm staying. And when the 6 children threw themselves into his arms, hugging him tightly, with the confidence, with the instant and unconditional love that only children know how to give, he felt it. He felt the weight of the 5 lost years. He felt the responsibility of the years to come. He felt the impossible, immense love that was born there, in that moment, for 6 small lives that were half of him. He didn't know what tomorrow would bring. He didn't know if he could completely forgive, if she could trust him, if they could build something together. But he knew one thing. Those 6 children deserved everything, and he was going to give them everything. Even if it meant forgiving the unforgivable. Even if it meant rebuilding from scratch. Even if it meant completely changing the life he had planned. Because now, for the first time in 5 years, he had something greater than business and fortunes. He had a family. The truth had blown everything apart. Now came the choice. Destruction. Or redemption. Days passed after that explosive confrontation. Days turned into weeks. And all that time, Alexander Chen couldn't think of anything but those words Sophia had screamed at him. You want to control my children like you control your business, but it doesn't work that way. He sat in his top-floor office, looking out the panoramic window at the city that had always seemed his to conquer. But now, for the first time in his life, Alexander felt small, powerless, lost. His lawyers had prepared all the documentation for the legal battle. Contracts, certified paternity tests, impeccable legal arguments. They guaranteed he would win custody of the boy, that the law was on his side. But every time Alexander looked at those documents, he saw Ethan's face. He saw the fear in the boy's eyes when he had appeared at the house. He saw how Ethan had run behind his mother, seeking protection. Protection from him. Mr. Chen, his assistant's voice brought him back to the present. The lawyers are awaiting your decision regarding the next phase of the proceedings. Alexander was silent for a long moment. Then, to the surprise of everyone in the room, he said, Cancel everything. Pardon me, sir? The lawsuit. Cancel it. I won't fight for custody. He took a deep breath. I'm going to try a different approach. Because there, in that moment of solitary clarity, Alexandre finally understood something fundamental. He couldn't control this. He couldn't force a family to exist through court orders and financial power. He had built an empire by controlling every variable, predicting every move. But children weren't business. Love wasn't a contract. And so he did something he had never done before in his life. He asked for help. The family therapist he sought out was direct with him. Mr. Chen, you cannot buy these children's love. You cannot order them to trust you. You will have to earn it. And it will be the hardest work of your life. Alexandre nodded, feeling a humility that was completely new to him. Where do I start? Start small. Start with honesty. And start by letting Sophia set the rules, because she's the one they trust. That's how, 3 weeks after the confrontation, Alexandre found himself ringing Sophia's doorbell again. But this time, he wasn't accompanied by lawyers. There was no security team behind him. He carried no legal threats. He was alone, empty-handed, and deeply afraid. Sophia opened the door and looked at him for a long moment. She could see the change in him. The way his shoulders were less rigid. The absence of that arrogance that always accompanied him. I didn't come to fight, he said softly. I came to apologize. And to ask if you would give me a chance to meet our children. All of them. The right way this time. Sophia crossed her arms, still cautious. What changed, Alexandre? He took a deep breath. I changed. Or at least, I'm trying. I realized I spent my whole life thinking control was power. But with family, control is the opposite of love. He looked into her eyes. You were right. About everything. And I'm sorry. It wasn't immediate. Sophia didn't let him in that day. But she said she would think about it. That she would talk to the children. That maybe, just maybe, they could try something different. And so began the hardest journey Alexandre Chen had ever faced. The first meeting was in a public park. Neutral ground, as Sophia insisted. The 6 children were there, looking at him with a mixture of curiosity and distrust. Alexandre didn't try to impress them. He didn't talk about his wealth, his business, his importance. Instead, he sat on the ground with them and said simply, My name is Alexandre, and I am your biological father. I know this is strange and scary, and I understand if you don't want to get to know me, but I would love to have the chance to meet each of you. It was Mia, the youngest of the girls, who broke the silence first. Are you really rich? Alexandre smiled slightly. Yes, I am. Then why didn't you show up before? This was Lily, the eldest, with her sharp, protective eyes. If you're so powerful, why did it take 6 years? It was the question he feared, but also the one he needed to answer with honesty. Because I didn't know. And when I found out, I reacted the wrong way. I tried to control the situation instead of understanding it. And I'm very sorry for that. Ethan, the boy he had pursued so intensely, remained silent, partially hidden behind Sophia. Alexandre made sure not to look directly at him, not to pressure him in any way. The subsequent meetings were small and careful. Alexandre appeared once a week, always at the agreed time, always respecting the boundaries Sophia set. He didn't try to make up for lost years with expensive gifts. Instead, he brought books, simple games, his presence. And slowly, very slowly, the children began to make room for him. Lily was the first to really talk to him. She had inherited his sharp business mind and was fascinated when he explained how the stock market worked. So you basically bet on the future of companies? She asked, her eyes shining. More or less, Alexandre replied, impressed by how quickly she grasped complex concepts. Interesting. But it sounds like a game for people who already have money to lose. Alexandre laughed genuinely. You just perfectly summarized one of the biggest criticisms of capitalism. With Emma, the connection came through art. She was the quietest of the children, always drawing in her notebook. One day, Alexandre sat beside her and asked about her drawings. They're castles, she explained shyly. Castles where families live together. "They're beautiful," he said sincerely. "You have a lot of talent." Emma looked at him, assessing if he was being sincere. Then, slowly, she tore the drawing from her notebook and handed it to him. "You can keep this." Alexander felt a lump in his throat. "I will treasure it." Noah, the scientist boy, tested Alexander with impossible questions about physics, chemistry, biology. When Alexander admitted he didn't know all the answers, Noah was surprised. "But aren't you like a business genius? Being good at business doesn't mean knowing everything," Alexander explained. "But it means knowing where to find answers. Want to go to the library with me on Saturday? We can research together." Noah's eyes lit up. It was his first enthusiastic yes. Mia completely won Alexander over when, one afternoon at the park, she simply climbed onto his lap and declared, "You have a comfy lap." There was no agenda, no judgment, just pure childlike acceptance. Alexander, who had never held a child on his lap before, remained completely still, afraid of breaking the moment. Sophia, watching from a distance, felt something soften in her chest. Sophie, the silent observer, took more time. She watched how Alexander interacted with her siblings, how he respected her mother's boundaries, how he consistently showed up week after week. One day, as they walked through the park, she simply slipped her small hand into his large one. Alexander looked down, surprised. Sophie said nothing, just kept walking, holding his hand as if it were the most natural thing in the world. It was one of the most significant moments of his life. And Ethan, the boy who had been at the center of the entire storm, still kept his distance. Alexander didn't pressure him, didn't try to force a connection. He simply was present, consistently, proving through actions that he wasn't going to disappear. Until one day, during a soccer game in the park, the ball rolled to Ethan's feet. He looked at Alexander, hesitant. "Kick it to me?" Alexander asked softly. Ethan considered for a moment. Then, slowly, he kicked the ball. Alexander returned it, and so began a simple game of father and son that neither of them knew they needed so badly. Months passed. Alexander became a constant presence in the children's lives. Not as an intruder trying to control, but as someone genuinely trying to build bridges. There were difficult moments, times when the children tested him, pushing boundaries to see if he would really stay. Moments when Sophia had to intervene, set rules, remind him that he was a guest in this family, not the commander. And every time Alexander swallowed his pride, he accepted the corrections. He learned. "You've changed," Sophia told him one night, after the children had gone to sleep. They were sitting on her porch, maintaining a respectful distance. "I had to change," Alexander admitted. "That version of me who showed up here months ago, demanding, controlling, thinking money solved everything. That guy would never have achieved this." He gestured to the house where 6 children slept. "I would have lost them before I even truly knew them." Sophia nodded slowly. "You know, I spent so much time angry at you. Angry because you left me in that hotel. Angry because you showed up and threatened everything I had built. But now?" She paused. "Now I see a man who is genuinely trying to be better. And that matters." "I can never make up for the years I lost," Alexander said quietly. "But I want to be present for all the years to come. If you'll let me." There was a moment of silence. Then Sophia said something that changed everything. "I think it's time the children knew the whole truth. About that night. About how they were conceived. About why it was just us for so long." Alexander felt fear tighten his chest. "What if they hate me when they find out? Then you'll have to earn their forgiveness, the same way you're doing now." Sophia looked at him. "But they deserve the truth, and we owe it to them." The conversation with the children happened on a Sunday afternoon. Sophia gathered everyone in the living room, with Alexander sitting uncomfortably on the sofa. "Children," Sophia began gently, "there's a story you need to hear about how you came into the world." And then, together, Alexander and Sophia told the story. A night in a hotel, an unexpected connection, his departure before dawn, her discovery weeks later, her choice to raise the children alone. The children listened in silence, processing. "So you abandoned our mom?" Lily asked, her voice sharp. I left that hotel without knowing your mother was pregnant, Alexandre gently corrected. But yes, I should have left a way to contact me. I should have been more responsible. And that's something I'll have to carry forever. And Mom? Noah turned to Sophia. Did you know there were 6 of us? Before we were born? Sophia shook her head. No, it was a surprise to me too. But it was the best surprise of my life. And now? Sophie asked, her voice small. What happens now? Alexandre and Sophia exchanged glances. Then Alexandre said, Now, if you want me to, I'd love to continue being a part of your lives. Not as someone trying to replace anything or control anything, but as your father. An imperfect father, learning every day, but one who loves you more than any business or achievement he's ever had. Emma timidly raised her hand. Can we call you Dad? Alexandre felt tears burning his eyes. I would love that. Even if you were kind of a jerk at first? Mia asked, making the whole room laugh through their tears. Especially because I was a jerk at first, Alexandre agreed, laughing and crying at the same time. Because that means you're giving me a second chance, and I won't waste it. Ethan, who had been quiet throughout the entire conversation, finally spoke. Are you going to stay this time, or are you going to leave again? It was the most important question, the one that cut through all the others. Alexandre knelt in front of Ethan, looking directly into the boy's eyes. I promise you, all of you, that I'm not going anywhere. I'll show up, week after week, year after year. I'll be there for birthday parties, school plays, in good times and bad, because you are the most important thing in my life. Ethan studied his face for a long moment. Then, slowly, he extended his pinky finger. Promise? Alexandre interlocked his pinky finger with Ethan's. I promise. And there, in that simple moment of a pinky promise, the last wall between them crumbled. Time passed. 1 year, then 2. And slowly, the impossible became reality. Alexandre Chen, the billionaire CEO who thought control was power, transformed into a father of 6 extraordinary children. He learned that love isn't about commanding, it's about being present. That family isn't about perfection, it's about acceptance. He was there when Lily started her first small business at 9 years old, selling lemonade with marketing strategies that would make MBAs weep with pride. He was there when Emma had her first school art exhibition, her drawings of castles and families decorating the walls. He was there when Noah won the science fair with an experiment on sustainable energy that impressed even university professors. He was there when Mia decided she wanted to be a dancer and needed someone to practice her moves with, even if he had 2 left feet. He was there when Sophie wrote her first story, about a family that found each other unexpectedly, but loved each other unconditionally. And he was there when Ethan, on Father's Day at school, introduced him to his friends simply as, my dad, without hesitation, without complicated explanations. The family they built wasn't conventional. Alexandre didn't live with them, respecting the boundaries Sophia had set. But he was present for dinners twice a week, alternate weekends, and always available whenever any of the children needed him. Sophia and Alexandre never became a couple again. That night at the hotel had been a unique moment in time, not the start of a romance. But they became something equally valuable. Effective co-parents, partners in raising 6 extraordinary human beings, friends who deeply respected each other. You know, Alexandre said to Sophia at a birthday dinner, surrounded by 6 laughing and celebrating children. A few years ago, I thought family was something you built through contracts and planning, strategic marriage, children at the right times, everything perfectly ordered. And now, Sophia asked, watching the children, now I know that the best things in life can't be controlled. They can only be accepted, nurtured, loved. He looked at her. Thank you for teaching me that. For not giving up on me even when I deserved for you to give up. Sophia smiled. Thank you for proving that people can change, that pride can transform into humility, that love can grow in the most unexpected places. And there, in that noisy, chaotic house, filled with 6 miraculous children and 2 imperfect parents learning every day, was proof of a fundamental truth. Sometimes, the truth we most fear revealing is the love we most need to accept. Family isn't about perfection. It's not about control or strategic planning. It's not about having all the answers from the start. Family is about showing up day after day, even when it's hard. It's about choosing love over pride. It's about accepting that the best blessings often come wrapped in chaos and surprise. Alexander Chen had built an empire from scratch. He had conquered markets, defeated competitors, accumulated wealth beyond imagination. But nothing, absolutely nothing, compared to the richness of 6 children calling him dad. To know that he had broken the cycle of emotional absence he had learned from his own father. To have the chance to be present for these little humans as they grew and became who they were meant to be. That night at the hotel, years ago, had seemed like a mistake, a lapse in control, a moment of weakness. But it turned out to be the greatest gift of his life. Because sometimes, when we let go of the illusion of control, we find something far more valuable. Real connection, unconditional love, and a family built not on perfect expectations, but on imperfect, genuine acceptance. And that, Alexander finally understood, was the only thing money could never buy, power could never command, and control could never achieve. It was love. Pure, complicated, chaotic, imperfect, and absolutely real love. If this story touched your heart, share it with someone who needs to hear about redemption, about second chances, about the transformative power of true love. Leave a like if you believe people can change when they find the right motivation. And subscribe to the channel for more stories about truth, family, and the unexpected journeys that make us who we truly are. Because in the end, we are all imperfect, all learning and all deserving of love exactly where we are.